Okay. It appears that we are live. How is everyone doing today? Sorry, I had my preview going there. Don't need that. All right. Well, as we're getting started here on Friday, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Jason Levine, and today we're going to be talking about audio. And today's live stream is all about just that. You can ask me anything audio related. I'm just going to drop a hello in the chat here. Kind of a free-form stream today. Lots of questions following earlier in the week over the Yanni and Laurel debate and some of those other things. And hopefully if you didn't watch that live stream already on the Premiere Pro Facebook page, you can catch it here on the Adobe Creative Cloud YouTube channel. You can also catch it on my YouTube channel as well. Jason Levine Video. What's up, Games? Or Game Sisser? How are you doing? So yeah, bring your audio questions. And if you don't bring them, then I'm just going to go through some random audio sessions and start mixing things. There are a bunch of sessions I needed to go back through, something which many people can identify with, I'm sure, having terabytes and terabytes of archives. And I've gotten really good in the last 6 months about archiving everything off and having sort of a main physical archive, several cloud archives. And now it's just a matter of going back and deciding if I want to bother with some of the sessions that I've got or just redo them from scratch. What's up, Aju George? Andreas Sand from Sweden. How are you? I got your name right. Game Sisser. Nice. All right. It's the least I could do. You know. Thank you for joining me today. All right. So, as I'm awaiting some questions, I'll go ahead and switch my screen over here. This is a session I've pulled up a couple times, and actually, I hadn't even realized that this was. Well, I had someone that I was sort of had me working in the studio for me for a little while, and I had them rebuild this multi-track session from an older one. The older one had gotten corrupted, so they rebuilt it, and then I had them come in here and start trying to mimic some of the effects and things that I'd used in the previous ones. There's some weird stuff. I don't know why either I did some of this or they did some of it. I don't know. It's kind of the benefits and the joy of being able to go back and remix and mess around with things is that, you know, you can give everything a totally new sound, really give it a complete facelift, audio facelift, if you will. And just kind of change the whole sound. So this was a track from my currently available EP on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Music, or wherever music is streamed or sold. It's called I've Got a Bald Spot. It's all about tolerance. And this was the master multi-track session. Now the version that's released is from an EP called Just Piano, Drums, and Vocal. So it's all live takes, single takes, no edits, no overdubs. It's just how I like it. This is that same take, though, with overdubs. I had overdubbed everything in advance of releasing the EP and then went back to this, nah, I just want this stripped down and raw. This was the overdub, the bulk of the overdubs. Some of them I took out. Some of them I replaced or just left kind of, again, sort of raw and hadn't really heard them for a while. Oh, and we've got more people in the chat here. Wonderful. So, Mayor Gordon, hello, how are you? Anything new on full VST support in Audition? Maybe VSTi. Ah, that's what you meant by full. So no, unfortunately, no movement there in the VSTi world. It is worth pointing out, since you asked just in general, and for those who are curious about plugins and things, Audition, now I'm on the Mac, of course. Audition supports VST, all flavors of VST, VST3, and AU plugins. You can see here if we just kind of scroll through some of them. I'm a huge fan. I love Softtube, Wave Machine Drumagog for drum replacement. This one is phenomenal. I've been using this plugin for ages. Waves is probably the most... that makes up most of my third-party effects or waves. I've just got probably a dozen or more of these. You're just seeing all the variations there. Waves Factory is another track spacer. Actually heard about that. Learned about that one from, if anyone watches Twitch, Monty, Scene of Action, was doing a session a year or so ago, and I was in the middle of mixing this album, and he was showing off this track spacer plugin, which effectively acts kind of like a sidechain compressor, sidechain ducker, but it's more than that. It's just a very intelligent automatic ducking plugin, and I was working on this track where it was a combination of lots of different percussion and some bass and some things that I needed to kind of push through, and that's exactly what this does. You can use it for letting bass push through in conjunction with kick drum. You can use it to allow certain elements, whether it's vocals or other things, to really just kind of push through the noise. And you've got some nifty EQ roll-offs that you can play with to make things even more pronounced. So, but unfortunately, so we're a full VST host with the exception of virtual instruments. I've been trying to get that back into Audition for a long time, and it just hasn't happened yet. But keep up. Let's keep mentioning it because we need it back in here. Okay, let's see what we got here. Digital Cine Meme. Could you talk about the Hollywood workflow for matching separate audio to camera with multicam and how to do it efficiently? Sure. That's in fact, here, while we're talking about that, I'm going to go ahead and here, I'll switch over to my camera here and pull up, see if I can't find the Premiere session. So, you know, there's a lot of, there's no one way that this is done. And in fact, I might just, in fact, link you to a YouTube video that my colleague Carl Soule put together. It's not specifically related to multicam and secondary audio, but it is about sort of the Hollywood workflow. And I assume what you're really referencing is having all of your, you know, raw content, and then what is kind of the standard process for synchronizing in advance of going to the multicam project. So let me see if I can, I'm going to pull up a project of mine from an older session, but this should hopefully do it here. So give me a second to find it. As I'm talking about the gobs of content that I've just very beautifully reorganized. Let's see. Okay, this should. I've got a couple of different session options here, so we're gonna see. And these haven't been opened in a while, so they're opening new in this latest Premiere. Missing an AVI. Okay. Let's see. I don't know. Oh, and actually, this doesn't seem to have a lot of content in it. What is this? No, let's just cancel this altogether. I don't know what that is. Okay, hold on. We're going to find a different session. Digital City, I'm still looking for you. Don't go anywhere. Yeah, what is this? Weird. You know what what I pulled up? It was some kind of multicam session, but the session itself is like missing a bunch of elements. I don't know what that was. So let's find something else. Oh, these are going way back. Okay. Let's try again. We'll see what this one is. Okay, yeah, this is so old. Look, it's got all these audio and video filters missing and all kinds of stuff. So we'll have to see what this is. All right. While I'm doing that, Evil Cerise, what's up? How are you doing? New Audio 201 coming anytime soon. You know, good question about that. You know, the truth is, I've had a lot of requests recently to chapterize the existing Audio 101s because there was so much content there. And not all of it was chapterized, so it was sort of hard for some people to find things, and yeah, it gets to be kind of a drag. So I don't have any planned at the moment. That's not to say that it can't happen. Just nothing just yet. Okay, give me a second here. As you can see, I'm trying to relink some of this. I don't know some of these. I don't know what some of this footage is. So let's skip this one. Let's cancel that one. Offline that one. Bass full body steady. Bass close-ups. Let's try and locate that. Basically, now you're just watching me look for stuff. That's no fun. Okay, give me a moment here. Let's get into some of these others. Okay, Amp Pruitt. Hey, what's up, Amp? Can you go through the auto ducking process in Premiere again, please? Sometimes mine doesn't duck out the music. Oh, absolutely. Easy enough. Okay. Digital Cine Meme. I'm still looking for you. I'm not giving up just yet. Yes, Ant. I will do that right after I do this. All right. How's that sound? I don't know why I'm not finding these things. What the hizzle? Where is... maybe... Actually, now I know. I do know. No, I got to go back to the masters. The masters. I don't know if you can see the name of this drive right here. CS5 projects. Yeah. That's how long ago this particular session was recorded. Just play music. Masters. Okay. JPM. Just play music. Insert shots. Bass insert. I think that's the one I was looking for before, but it's not the one I need. Oh, are you kidding me here? And it's MVI, so 8348 from Assets 2013. Where is that? Just play music, insert shots, JPM insert camera 2 5D Mark II. Okay. Camera 2 5D Mark II. That is not, it's not in there. There it is. All right. I gotta find these others. Okay. Bass. Bass inserts. Okay, where is this? What is it? What is it looking for? 2278. Here we go. Where is that? JPM Camera 3 TX1. Okay. There it is. JPM Camera 3 TX1. Why is that not where it's supposed to be? JPM Video Masters. Oh my God, I'm already bored. Camera 3 TX1. There we go. Why is it not in there? All right, forget it. Cancel. We're going to offline that one. It's taking forever. I see what you're asking. You want to be able to connect the footage with the audio without going one by one, like through a bin or something. I think this is what Kevin was talking about. Is there a Kevin in here? Okay. Yeah, so here's the thing. If you have, and I guess what you're saying is, right, you want to be able to attach camera 1 to secondary audio 1, camera 2 to secondary audio 2, not just synchronize everything together. So, yeah, we don't have a really slick, super slick workflow for that. You can attach and you can synchronize multiple things together from within a bin via audio sync. It's just that it won't necessarily attach like camera 1 to. It's not. In other words, it's not going to attach the files together necessarily. It kind of just depends on what you're. But I'm assuming you're wanting it so that you actually have like camera 1 with its camera audio is automatically attached to the secondary audio there as a new file, and it won't necessarily do that. Let me play this back actually, and let me see if this is in fact. Oh, yikes! That's super close. That's just my head. Oh my God! What is that shot? Ah, too close. Yeah. So the reason I was pulling this up for you, by the way, which is why I was refusing to give up. This is the original. Where's the multicam edit? I don't even know if is that even in here. It doesn't even look like I set up the. Where's the multicam sequence itself? Oh, there it is. This looks to be the original music video for the theme song, Just Play Music. Here, let me just play a couple seconds of this real quick. And actually, I need to pull up my multicam. Oh, it's already in there. Okay. Just to see. I mean, we're probably missing a camera. What? Did I not just see that down there? Okay, it's on top of the camera button. What is going on here? Wow, really strange. Sorry, I'm seeing some weird stuff. Where's the... It just disappeared on me. Do you see that? The multicam button is gone. Interesting, and we're only seeing 2 cameras, which there are 4, so that's also weird. Oh, because I turned these off, that's why. Okay. Somehow I had in my mind that it was a good idea to get a shot super close just of my head. I don't know what I was thinking there. But the way that this was ultimately done, Digi, was here's all of your master clips here with their on-camera audio. These are all like short. And clips. 5. If you want to just focus in on that. Takes 4 and 5. All right, we're going to mark it. All right. And then from there, from each of those, and here we go. Here's our audio files. Oh, this isn't the master session either. These are all mixed versions. Because all of this, I don't know if you can see in the shot here. So everything was live multi-tracked. So my vocal, the piano, and then I overdubbed bass and drums. So each of those pieces was live multi-track. Each thing is sourced from a live actual take. And then all of those were synchronized together. And the way that that was done, I mean, this is probably how you already do it, is, I took the audio files and then all the various video files. So here, I'll grab a couple of these, and do what you already are doing, which is create the multi-camera source sequence. Oh, which you can't see because my head is blocking it there. So you choose create multi-camera source sequence, and from within here, you can choose to sync via audio. Now again, that will synchronize everything all together. The only thing it isn't going to do, as I mentioned, is it's not going to make sort of a merged new file, which you're probably wanting it to do. In other words, the proper secondary audio that goes with camera 1 should be automatically attached to camera. In this scenario, if you're trying to do it sort of all at once like that, it's just going to synchronize everything in the timeline, and then you'd have to go and group or unlink and then relink things together. Not super ideal, but I'm going to put Carl's link in the chat here before we end, and check that out. I think he actually has a little bit on multicam in there, and I'm sorry this wasn't the best example of that. Yeah, what is this cut here exactly? Let's play this back. Got to just play music. Oh, and this is a really early edit. That's why. I'm listening. It doesn't have the overdubs. Sitting at home like any other day, you're feeling so bored. You've got so much time, so use it. So it's a terrible cut too. So someone was just asking about you can edit how many cameras, Fernando. So it's unlimited. It's any number of cameras. Truly just based on whatever your system can handle. So, you know, here we've got, let's see, all of these. Coffee can. I mean, I'll just show you. I'm going to grab a couple of these here. And let's just put these into a multi-camera source sequence. I'm not going to synchronize by audio. Let's see. These aren't necessarily all synced up yet. I just want to see if I can build a new sequence here for you. Those are your processed clips. There we go. Wait, what is this one? Oh, so you can see here. So in this case, I'd be working off of 9 cameras, okay? And as you add additional cameras to the sequence, so I've got all these different cameras stacked up here. All right, so turn some of these off. I had kids shouting in the background. This is like a coffee can or something. And this one right here, this is me doing a shaker. All right, as you add additional cameras to this, and you can see as I turn them off, they're disappearing in the window here. But as you do that, it just adds more and more tiles for you, and then you're using keyboard shortcuts to cut between the cameras, really based on the power of your system. If you're working with proxy edits, and this again, I've got a link I can send at the end of this too, which we did when I was editing the Imagine Dragons Believer video last year, showcasing for the contest, Premiere's 25th anniversary. That was 16 cameras, and that was actually done on a laptop, and it was unreal. I mean, I couldn't believe that my MacBook Pro was able to keep up with 16 cameras, and part of that was because they were all transcoded, like super small. So just to make the multicam edit process that much better. So nothing was above around 8 megabits MP4. And I was able to really successfully do it. All sourced from like red 6K content, right? The brilliance there is that when I was ready to relink everything to its full version and do an export, you know, because I've been working off of proxies, all I had to do was click on the toggle proxy button here, and it just immediately switches over to the proxy version. So there's no work involved. There's no manual relinking. It just happens. It just works. So super effective, super efficient, and a really great way to do it. But yeah, it's effectively unlimited based on the power of your system. And like I said, I'll put the link in here before we quit. I've done as many as 16. I never shoot that many, so I don't have that many to work with. But all right, so for Ant, let's talk real briefly about auto ducking. This process, same now in Audition as it is in Premiere Pro. Hopefully this is the session that I want. It is. All right, here's my buddy Fuzzy Island. What's up, Hassan? What's up, Kaba from Ghana? Nice to see you. All right. Very cool. Juan de la Cruz, nice to see you as well. Okay. And again, drop your questions in here if you've got more, and we'll get to it. All right, so here's a brief look at Auto Duck. Do I have a new Essential Audio workspace? I guess this one's as good as any. No, that's not what I want, though. I want Essential Sound. Okay. There we go. All right. So here we have an interview where we've got music and dialogue, and right now the music is actually super quiet. So let me bring this back up, and let's just take a listen.
3, 4. My name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write stories, tell stories. I guess I'm just an old storyteller, guitar player, singer-songwriter. I'm so downhearted.
Okay, so for anyone who's unfamiliar with what Ant's referring to, auto ducking. So what would we normally do in this scenario? We have a couple of options here. We want obviously to lower the music whenever he's speaking. So a couple things we could do. Traditionally, what I would normally do, and would be to probably enable write automation here inside the track mixer. Go into write mode, I'm sorry, on the music actually, right? And then watch down below looking at the waveforms, and as you know, I knew that there was something coming up where he'd be speaking, I would slowly start to drop that fader's volume and then do it back up when he was no longer talking. Or you also have the option, of course, which is even easier, to just come down here and start drawing keyframes, right? So you could place some keyframes right here, and you always use 4, right? So we have the handle at the end where we want it to be, and then I could drop this down something like that, like 8 dB, whatever, and do something like this manually.
My name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music or write music.
Right, and then when he's done talking,
since you said we're through,
okay, the audio comes back up. And there's nothing wrong with any of those workflows, except that in the case of riding the fader, as it's called, that is, of course, real time. So I'd have to watch this whole thing and do it for 2.5 minutes. Doing the keyframes manually is obviously faster, but it still involves a lot of like trial and error, back and forth, readjusting keyframes manually. So we have a new process via the Essential Sound panel that does it automatically for you, and it's called Auto Duck. So part of the way that Essential Sound works is first you want to identify, you need to tell it what the sounds are inside the multitrack, inside your sequence timeline. And by that I mean, is it dialogue, music, sound effects, or ambience? So all of my dialogue is on this A2 iPhone track. By the way, here's another example of me synchronizing camera and iPhone. So all of this, because it was one continuous take or maybe 2 takes, the 2 cameras, the 2 camera clips, the 2 audio clips, I dropped them into a timeline. And this is, again, for Digi. Again, you already know this, but just for those who aren't familiar. And then they're already synced, so there's nothing to do here. But I would choose synchronize. It automatically allows me to sync via audio, and then it automatically lines everything up together. And you can see it kind of creates what you see there. So the first thing I'm going to do is select all of the dialogue, which is on this iPhone track, and tell Essential Sound that it's dialogue. All right, so now it's all tagged as dialogue. Then you've got all these things that you can do to the dialogue. You can make it louder, you can repair it, you can add clarity, whatever you want. Then I'm going to come down to the music track here, and I'm going to tell Essential Sound that it's music. All right, so here's your buttons up here. So I tell it that it's music. And when I do that, now again, you've got additional things that you can do to the music track. In the case of this, what I want to do is I want to enable auto ducking. Now that's curious. I don't know why loudness is turned on. I'm going to click on ducking, and then what you have the ability to do is to duck against specific types, right? The default is dialogue, and then you have music, sound effects, ambience, and even things that aren't tagged. So this is really useful, again, if you're coming from another NLE or you just haven't bothered to tag anything. However, if nothing is tagged, then it's going to start ducking against any audio that exceeds a particular sensitivity threshold, which is that first default setting right here. So I don't really recommend using that on larger, bigger sessions because it's probably going to duck against things you don't want it to. The point is we allow that. You don't have to tag stuff. And then you're simply going to click Generate Keyframes. Now, I haven't even adjusted any of the defaults. So let me go ahead and generate keyframes. And what should happen when it does its thing, and you can see it did down below. I'm going to zoom in here so you can see it. Remember all those keyframes that I just drew manually moments ago? Well, it's gone in here, and it's automatically done it for me. And you can see the audio for the music starts up high, and then just before I talk, it ramps it down. Now, he's got a little bit of a pause in there, so it ramped back up. That probably means I need to readjust that sensitivity, because I don't want it to duck back up there while we're still on camera with him. And then he stopped talking and the audio ramps back up again. And as you can see, it's done this throughout the file automatically. And for pretty much all the others, it caught it just right. Look at that. There's one little weird bit right there where he's obviously just, again, pausing for a very long time. One little bit right there too. All these others look super good, okay? So again, what can we do? So we can readjust the sensitivity. So let's see, if we set the threshold, let's go a little bit higher, and I'll regenerate those keyframes. All right, there we go, and that did it right there. So do you see what happened? That makes sense, Ant? So I adjusted the sensitivity a little bit higher so that it's not, because even I pause, but I'm still in that talking mode. It's not total silence, and he picks back up within, 500 milliseconds, So I just adjusted the sensitivity a little bit higher so that it didn't ramp back up the music. But that's it. And it really, look now, did quite a brilliant job here. So these are just defaults, right, for the most part, aside from adjusting sensitivity. Now when we play this back, let's wind it back, take a listen, and you'll hear it's going to do exactly what you'd expect, which is automatically drop that music down based on the level of speech. Here we go.
3, 4.
Name's Fuzzy Island, and I play music, I write stories, tell stories.
Cool, right? Now you might say,
I guess I'm just an old...
the reduction is too much. I want the music a little bit higher. Well, the default is 18 dB. Yeah, that is pretty aggressive. So, you know, for an interview like this, probably somewhere around 11, 12 dB. That extra 6 dB is going to make it sound twice as soft. So if we go to around 12, let's regenerate our keyframes here. All right, it does its thing. I don't know if you noticed, but that center line just raised up approximately 6 dB. Let's listen to the transition here.
Singer-songwriter.
B-roll.
I think it's very cool. The one thing I miss about my younger days when I was living in Tennessee and folks didn't have money, but everybody seemed to live in a house with a...
Okay, so again, real nice, sounds very natural and musical. It's got that nice ramp up. Again, the ramp up would be where I'd probably do some cutaways to him, you know, playing guitar or whatever. That's it. That's what it is, the sensitivity. Aha, okay. Sorry, it took me a second to look back there, Ant. 10 minutes later, I'm reading your comment, but perfect. Yeah, so the sensitivity, that's your threshold. That's the key. And just to point out to everyone, so even after it generates the keyframes, and by the way, just to reiterate, if you make a change in that panel there, you have to regenerate the keyframes for it to update the change you made. Now, in Audition, it has there's a checkbox to monitor, follow changes or something like that. It will redraw, it will redraw automatically. You don't have to regenerate. It does it it's dynamic. As you move stuff around, almost went with an expletive there. As you move stuff around, it automatically regenerates the keyframes. Here in Premiere, you have to physically tell it regenerate, and it will do just that. But of course, all of these are still editable. So like in this section, again, for whatever reason, the sensitivity there, it didn't quite do it. It was still showing me those keyframes. So I can just get rid of these, right? These are all still fully editable. So I don't need any ducking there or anything there at all. I can just get rid of them. Or, you know, I want to raise up the music even more in this section. I can raise up the music even more in this section. So total flexibility here with modifying them yourself after the fact. All right? All right. Cool. Great question, Ant. Thank you. Yeah, it's so tedious, and that's the key. It is absolutely tedious. And, you know, I joke because this timeline here, I mean, this is 4 minutes. But even this, I mean, when I generate, there is a video interview of this that's never been released. I'll put it out one of these. I think I'm going to put this out when we do the next EP. Again, if you want to check out the soundtrack that you hear there is a song called Anytime. For anyone listening, who cares? If you like acoustic old school blues in the style of Mississippi John Hurt, Furry Lewis, Mississippi Fred McDowell, and many other greats, you can check it out. Google Play, Amazon, Spotify. It's called 2 Centuries of American Music, starring this dude, Fuzzy Island, and yours truly. And it's all acoustic, live, very, very wonderfully captured. If you wear headphones, you're going to... One review that I read was like, you can smell the room that you're in. So, you know. And it was done in all different locations over about a 15-year period. And we're doing 3 EPs to kind of highlight all that. Okay, A Raccoon. Is the video I made on 2012 still dated? The how to record a voiceover in Adobe Audition CS6. Actually, A Raccoon, it's the workflow for that, despite it being in CS6, is actually, I would say, virtually the same. In terms of preferences, I don't think we even changed much in terms of the audio prefs in Audition itself. I think this is all basically the same. So yeah, it's still relevant. It's funnily enough, that seems to be one of my still most watched videos, and it's like 6.5 years old already. But it's still valid. So whether you have CS6 or CC, the actual how you record a microphone part of it is the same. Now, if you want more detail with a later version, a CC update, you can check out my series Audio 101, and part 1 is how to record your voice. And it just goes into, again, a little more detail with a whole series of different microphones. So it also lets people hear the difference between like a really nice, studio condenser mic versus like a USB microphone, which might be condenser or dynamic, versus like the, Apple earbud. I think I use this microphone, right, in one of the examples. And then I also have a USB Logitech like gamer headset, a cheap one, not a great one. But just to kind of showcase the different sounds and how they show up. Obviously, the USB flavors will show up as their own device. Like here, so I use a Focusrite Thunderbolt device, a Claret 8. So it shows up as the single device here. And then if you go into the channel mapping, this is where you can access, all of its various inputs and outputs. And I crack up whenever I see ADAT, which I used to have. I still have DA88, but I do not have ADAT anymore. But this thing has like 20 inputs. So, but your USB microphones and devices will show up as, Logitech USB mic. It'll show up right here. In this machine, the only other device that I've got connected is the built-in mic. So, yeah. So it's still valid. Craig, what is up? Nice. Okay. Oh, Ant, you hadn't heard? You have heard this track? Yeah, I think you have. I've played it. We recorded that. That was the newest track on that EP. We recorded that last July, and when did I put that EP out? March 9th of this year. So yeah, I played it on different streams, in different forms, in the background. So yeah, you definitely heard it, I'm sure. A Raccoon, actually, so to Evil Cerise, he is correct. It is an Audio Technica, but not the 2020. This is the 4050 multi-pattern condenser. This is and has been my vocal mic of choice. Looks very much like the 2020, by the way. They've all been kind of modeled after this. This was in the 90s, dare I say. That's how long I've had this. This was the Nashville, one of the many Nashville studio standards for vocal recording. And as I always say, and as I say in that Audio 101, much like in Harry Potter where the wand chooses the wizard, the microphone chooses the singer or the voiceover artist. Not everyone sounds good on the same mic. So this one, for my voice, I've just always loved the way it sounds. And the 2020s are great too and very affordable. So yeah, cool. Thank you, Evil Cerise. Always up on my, you know too much about me. Okay. That's okay. Yes. Oh yes, the headphones. Another evil question there. Yeah, I always show these here. These are the classics. It's going to get blurry because we're at f3.5. But these are Sony MDR 7506, industry standard. They're not the flattest of headphones, but like I said, they do have a particular sound, but they are industry standard. They're in every studio in the world pretty much. And it doesn't take long for your ear to acclimate to the sound of those. And if you mix with those in conjunction with, a couple of different speaker or listening environments, you can get some really beautiful mixes. They're also just great for like overdubbing. If you're streaming, they're very comfortable. They fold up. They're nice. They're sub $100 US. They're great. Okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Digi from the Mindhunters thing. Yep. Okay. Sorry, I'm just going back to that earlier one. Okay. AS Images. I'm just trying to go down the list, and then I'll get to you, John. Any simple way to sync multi-audio tracks in Audition without having to work with waveforms? Are you talking about... So like if are these things that have been recorded together or have they been recorded separately? So, I mean, you don't have, like an audio synchronized function like Premiere. Now, having said that, if you do have things that have broadcast wave time code, you can have BWAVs inserted at their specific timecode locations. So if everything was clock synced, and by that I mean digital and sort of actual physical atomic clock synced, time-wise, timecode-wise, you can insert a bunch of tracks, and if they've got broadcast wave timecode in them, they will automatically synchronize without you having to do anything. Outside of that, there's really no, I mean, if you're like, you know, so in the case of something like this where I had these drums, right? So all of these drum tracks were obviously recorded at the same time because this is me playing a live kit, right? So it was really just a matter of dragging them all in. They all have the same start time. They don't have all the same end time, but they have the same start time. So it's just dragging them all in and just aligning them to the left. Outside of that, if you have something like a vocal, so maybe you're talking like vocal overdubs and you slipped something, what we do have a feature for, and I don't talk about this one too often because it has limited success in certain cases, but this was actually designed to be an ADR feature for video. But it's this one here called automatic speech alignment. That's why I specifically said vocal. It's better with voiceover. So if you're doing voiceover to video and you're revoicing something or doing, again, dialogue replacement, this is actually a pretty awesome feature. And what this will allow you to do is you can see you have like your reference. So this could be, okay, this is our piano 1 left 03. This is our, you know, original audio. And then, you know, it's referencing channel 1, doesn't matter. And then the unaligned is that this would be your overdub. And then you can see here you've got a couple of different options to do the tightest alignment, balanced alignment, and stretching. And that is exactly what you think. It uses our stretching algorithm to make the stuff fit in sync. And then, but that's not without some potential artifacting. And then you have smoothest stretching. So it's really, again, for dialogue, voiceover, not singing, this is pretty ideal. If you're talking music, you know, give it a try. It can do some weird stuff. But outside of that, the only other way to automatically sync without having to use waveform analysis, you know, or something like that, which is, I assume, what you're talking about, you look for the click and then line it all up, would be to have broadcast wave timecode in your audio clips. All right, John, I'm having an issue with compression on guitar tracks. What is a good starting point? I also recorded my band show with 2 mics. Can't clean it up. Okay, well, John, hold on, I'm just seeing if you've added anything. You struggle with compression on guitars. Yeah, so, John, so if you haven't checked out my... Here, I'm going to put it in the chat while we're here, okay? If you haven't checked out the Audio 101, and tell me in the chat if you have, Episode 8 and Episode 9 are all about compression and limiting. 2 separate episodes, one on compression, one on limiting. Why? Because sonically, they give you different sounds. Functionally, how you address and set them is the same. It's just a matter of what you're doing in terms of ratio and how much you're actually squashing the audio down. But how you set it is identical. Let me see here. None of these have guitar. Let me open up a session that's got some guitar on it. I don't use guitar very often. People ask me that a lot, and they ask why, and the answer is because I don't love it. I don't love guitar. No, not this. I use acoustic more than electric. Let me put it that way. RTM, okay. So I'm going to pull this up. Again, this, I don't know, this is pretty old, but should be able to showcase some guitars in here. So in terms of a good starting point, now again, this will vary between acoustic and electric. I assume you're asking like what's a good starting ratio, if that's what you mean. So it depends, obviously. That's a nice throwaway answer, right? But it does. It depends because if you're talking like super heavy rock, you know, metal, and you've already got an electric guitar through a Marshall, through a pedal that's already compressing and adding distortion, you know, you don't want to you don't want to over compress something that's already compressed, because otherwise you're just going to thin it out and level out the dynamics to the point where there's nothing. So in the case of something like that, ratio-wise, you probably want to be at a ratio below 5 or 6 to 1. And it really depends on like the speed and how legato you're playing. You know, if you're doing like short attacks, rhythm style, something like that, like just a rhythmic attack, you can use a slightly more aggressive ratio because it's punctuating, right? But if you've got continuous, you can see that if you over compress it, if you squash it too much, ultimately all that's going to do is just remove any kind of dynamics at all, and which is fine. Sometimes you want that, but it's not necessarily the most ideal. So what I want to do here, so I've got 2 acoustic guitars going on here. Yeah, bear with me here. So let me see. Let's see. I'm gonna just highlight this section so we can play these back. Just loop this. All right, and I'm going to make a new bus so I can compress these together. Okay, guitar bus. All right, and let's start with something like, now again, if you're asking me what compressor would I normally go to, it's got a lot of favorites. A lot of them are classic analog modeled ones through Waves or Softtube. But if I'm just going to use like one of our native compressors, again, we've got a lot of different options here. So I would probably recommend, and this is a good one to learn on, I showcase this in the video, the classic tube modeled compressor. Reason being is that this has threshold, gain, ratio, attack, release, 5 standard functions on every compressor, or classic compressors. It has your input meter and your gain reduction meter, and that's all you need to understand it. So in the case of these guitars, now before I play them back, I just want to make sure, I'm going to send these to the guitar bus, all right, and I'm going to send these post fader, put the level at 0 here. And I'm going to send them with the same pans, by the way. I don't know if you can see, but I've got, because this was doubled, so I'm just doubling the same, playing the same guitar part twice acoustically. All right. Let me see. I don't know. I might have some compression on these already. I'm going to bypass the compression. So this is one of the SSL Waves compressors. All right. So I'll turn off that compressor but keep the EQ. I'll bypass this compressor and I'll leave the delays on there. That's fine. And let's take a quick listen here to what we've got. I'm just going to set this kind of to 0 for the moment. Okay, so this is no compression right now. So with a ratio of 4 to 1, that means that for every 4 dB above the threshold that I set, it's 1 dB at the output. So we're going to basically be squeezing about 3 decibels of dynamics away from there. And that's usually a lot of those just right? It's just that first transient attack. It's still going to kind of pop and punctuate. And how much of that popping and punctuation happens is controlled directly by that attack time, which is how quickly that compressor kicks in. So for something like this, I want you to feel that, I want you to feel those attacks. So I don't want this super, super fast. Now, 9 milliseconds is pretty common to kind of just catch everything. I want it to pop through a little more. So maybe I'll go even as much as 20 milliseconds here. But I want a fairly quick release. I want it to recover quickly. And again, for ratio, I mean, if I take a look at the waveforms here, the dynamics are already kind of fairly even. If you just take a look at the peaks, there's not, I'm guessing this is about a 4 to 6 dB difference max. So I'd probably use a ratio of around 3.5 or 4 to 1, right? So maybe we'll just, let's start with like 3 to 1 here. The idea behind this is that we're just trying to even out the dynamics a bit, but give it a little bit more boost and a little bit more punch. So for acoustics, this is ideal. So let's just take a listen here, and I'm going to start adjusting the threshold and the gain and get this to kind of really pop, all right? Here we go. Wind this back. up to around 4. So here's without, here's with. Okay. And again, if I want to give it a little bit more output gain, give it a little more punch, a little more in your face. Just drop that attack a little bit. Let's go to around 14. Without, it's really wide open, but I want to control those dynamics because it's a little too much. So now it's just punctuating those attacks. And if I make that release a little bit longer, it's going to hold it a little bit longer. So you're going to feel those attacks even more. So if I went to like 150. Give it more output gain. Okay, so something like acoustics, again, 4-to-1 here, around 14 milliseconds of attack, 150 millisecond release, kind of, it was a little nicer, a little, I mean, now again, I'd want to hear that in context with everything to see if I'm getting enough of that attacked sound in there. But ultimately, what we're also trying to do, of course, is prevent like these random peaks from popping away. Electric guitar can be a little bit different. So here, let me see if I can find this session for you. And in the meantime, let's go to let's check out some additional questions here too. So many questions now. Oh my God! All right. Okay. Okay, quick one from Diego. Is it possible to specify where files go when using send to Audition? I don't like having those files go next to my originals. Yeah. So when you do the send sequence, here's where you can tell it where to go. So it doesn't actually sit next to the originals. It ends up in an Audition interchange folder, but you can put that anywhere. You know, you can place that folder anywhere. Typically, I would probably leave it wherever that master session is, just because Premiere is going to want to look for it later. But yes, you can adjust the path. Okay. How do you clean up your speech correctly and easily, Marvin? Well, you know, there's a couple ways to do it. Quick and easy doesn't necessarily apply all the time, but you do have options. So here's something I recorded truly just yesterday. I'll show you this real quickly before we get to electric guitar. Oh, and we've only got 7 more minutes. So this is a voiceover that I did. They needed it for, I do this show for Adobe called Make It, and they needed a little intro voiceover. And I was in here editing yesterday and doing other things, and I had all my drives running and fans, and it was very, very noisy. So you can see right away that there's a lot of, this is like all these drives humming in the background between 100 and 150 hertz here. So I said to them, look, I'll record the voiceover. I'm not going to process it. I'm not going to compress it. I'm not going to do anything. As it is, you can do what you want. It's clean enough, but there's some background noise because of all the drives. You're hearing them now on the stream too. First and foremost, I want to point out, when you look at these waveforms, what do you see? Because I've been doing voiceover since I'm 11 years old, the dynamics of this are very, very even. This is a good thing. This is where you want to get to if you do voiceover work. And if you just take a quick listen. This week on Make It, we're talking giant screen productions. Producer, director, and cinematographer Peter Chang shares his inspiring journey of how he became a leading creative in this immersive field. All right. So, how to clean up things quickly and easily. First, you need to identify where the problem is. There's nothing in the highs or mids or low mids that I find problematic. Now, I can see right around here, and it's very specific. I don't know if it's coming through on the stream. It's probably a little dark. No, I'm not going to bother lighting it up. There is something resonating at approximately 1.5 and 1.6K. But because visually I can see that it's in this very dark purple, what you can see down here is the audio level of whatever that is minus 90. So it's inaudible. So we don't have to worry about that. I can see it visually. It might trip you up and think, you need to get rid of that. You can't hear it. It's at minus 90 dB. Can't hear it at all. But this stuff down here, which again, you may or may not necessarily hear on stream right now, this is problematic. This is like fan and background noise. So you've got a couple of different options here. You just need to audition and see which sounds the best. So we have this thing called adaptive noise. Now this one does just that. It listens, it learns, and then it adapts to the changes in the noise in your audio file. One thing that I will typically do before I process a voiceover is I'll normalize it. So again, and this is why I talk about having very even dynamics, I'll usually process to around -3. If your dynamics are all over the place, normalization isn't going to necessarily help you. So you might need to compress a little before you can raise the overall amplitude just a bit. We're not trying to make it super loud, but loud enough so that adaptive noise has enough to work with here. So, and also so that you can really hear what it's doing in terms of any artifacts, or if there's too much noise reduction, you're getting kind of that swishy, swirly sound. I'll put on my headphones so that I can hear this even more accurately. And, you know, I'll always recommend starting with a preset. So we have like light noise reduction. I think the default is actually a pretty decent place to start. If we take a listen here, all right, I'm going to play this back and see what this sounds like. And you're going to hear it kick in. It kind of does this like, you may not hear it because the noise isn't so pronounced, but let's take a listen. This week on Make It, we're talking giant screen productions. Producer, director, and cinematographer Peter Chang shares his inspiring journey of how he became a leading creative in this immersive field. Okay, and actually, because the noise is, it's around -60, which is, if you were recording into like your native, I used to say, what were those called? Creative cards called? The ones that you'd find in PCs all the time. Usually had a noise floor of around -60. I mean, that's so low, most people would never hear that. So using adaptive here, if I just quickly apply this, again, not even changing anything, just the default settings. I'm going to nerd out on you here, but take a look. So you can see this is where it was learning, and then it kicked in, and then it goes, and it shrinks this down, which is, you can see there, it's like -48 to -60, 63, okay? So it dropped that noise, it attenuated that noise 20 dB. We can see it visually on the meter here. I also know this because if we go into adaptive, what was my reduction set to? 20 dB. So like you can really begin to understand what it's doing. And then if you look spectrally, this is really where it gets cool. You can see that there's still some stuff resonating down there. So maybe you want to get a little bit more aggressive on this, and you can do that by adjusting the amount of reduction or the noise floor. Yeah, I mean, at -63, it's virtually inaudible, but visually, I don't like that being there. So something that you can also do that I recommend if you're comfortable, and this is something that you can play with, and also I've got a whole series of this in Audio 101, is you can take a noise print of that noise. And you want to make sure it's just noise, nothing else going on there. No clicks or any like there's some random click right there. I wouldn't want to capture that section. You also want to make sure that you're only selecting the noise that you can see. Right around 300 hertz, and this says a lot, it's all black, which means absolutely nothing. So I don't want to select that area. I just want to select the area where I can actually see noise. Come up to noise reduction here, process. And again, I cover all this in Audio 101. There's a couple of different methods that you can implement inside of this reduction effect. For voiceovers and things, I'll typically use something known as a little bit of spectral decay, which is going to attenuate the noise a bit more gently, give you less artifacts, and just kind of give you a slightly better sounding result. If you set spectral decay to 0, it goes into what's called a subtractive method of noise reduction. But if I click apply on this now what you see is that those sections, well, and everywhere, it's not just in between, the whole file now, here's the before. So you see all that red going through, and then the after. What is it? I always forget what redo is. Gone. Totally silent. This week on Make It, we're talking giant screen productions. Producer, director, and cinematographer Peter Chang shares his inspiring journey of how he became a leading creative in this immersive field. Yeah, now you can see the noise. Here, if we just like play this back, right? We went from minus, oh, and there's like a clicky thing there, but it's nothing you can even hear. We're at minus 80 something, all right? So we're basically as quiet as one can get, or what one is used to when recording silence at 24-bit. That's legit. That's fab. And I did it with two processes there. A little bit of adaptive using the default, and then a bit of noise reduction to clean up after the fact. You just have to play and listen, and you have to listen critically. There's no fast way about it, unfortunately. I mean, there is. You can just set and forget. The problem is you'll likely end up with something artifacted. So it takes a little practice. I recommend watching the 2 Audio 101s, and hopefully that'll provide you a little more context. All right. Ah, Diego, sorry, you meant edit clip in Audition. Yeah, no. Now, the only other thing that you could do is when it's in Audition, you can save it to a different location. So when you edit clip, right, it's tied back to Premiere. You can save clip once it's in Audition. You can do a save as and change the save location. I think it still updates the Premiere timeline at that point. If it didn't, what you could then do though would be to, well, you wouldn't want to put it back into the multitrack and send it back over there. I haven't tried that in a while, so I'm not sure. I think it still maintains the relationship even if you do a save as. I'm not entirely certain. So what you might do in that case, you'd save it to a new location. You'd click over to Premiere. If it didn't automatically update, what you would then do, and I'll just show you here like in practice, so you'd come over to your audio file, and basically what you would do is make it offline, like this. So you make it offline, all right? Media file remains on disk. Click OK. And then, because you didn't change timing, you just changed where it was. If you just, again, right-click, control-click, and then choose Link Media, now you can relink based on that new location. And then if you edit the original again in Audition, that's the audio clip location that it's modifying. So it's not super ideal, but it works. All right. Okay. Great. Okay. Okay. Is it possible to time remap by sticking at a specific point? For instance, I sometimes know that this point is in sync and I want to stretch to the left or right side. Right now I have to cut the yeah. I want it, yes. So, short answer, Craig Gibosh. Yeah. There is no way to set like a hold this section and just stretch over here and here. You have to physically cut. So you're doing the way that it would work today by design. We have been talking about, and I know other softwares do that, where you're right. You flag a marker and say leave this section alone and only affect the tempo or whatever on this section here. We don't do that as of yet. So you are doing it. You're doing it the way one would do it today. What's up, Reef Patrol? Yeah, Evil Cerise, why is there no Audition pillow? There might be. I saw one a long time ago. Maybe we don't make them anymore. Okay, Apache. Every time I record something with a shotgun mic, I get a ton of noise. Any ideas why? Well, what kind of noise? I mean, again, a shotgun, and there's different, I mean, if it's shotgun by default and it's either supercardioid or hypercardioid polar pattern, it should certainly reject anything that's not, in its laser focus, right? So if this were my shotgun and my fingers, the middle represents where that signal path is. This would be like supercardioid. It only picks up from here, and it ignores this, and it ignores this, and it ignores usually almost everything from the rear, but there is a small gap, but it's virtually inaudible. But if you're getting noise in terms of, there's a lot of wind or stuff coming from the front, they have the different wind screens, depending, if you're doing like outside miking, you shouldn't be getting a ton of noise on a shotgun unless the environment you're in is just really windy, in which case, yeah, I mean, there's different wind screens and things that you can use that'll attenuate some of that. make it better, may not remove it entirely. The only the downside to some of that, if you can get rid of it all with a windscreen, is that it will also affect, frequency-wise, the capture. So, things may not be as bright and crisp. You can EQ them after the fact. Just be mindful. But yeah, let me know, because you shouldn't be getting too much noise with a shotgun. All right. A Raccoon, how does spectral decay work? So again, I don't want to go into a whole thing on this because I could talk about this for hours, and it's already done, so I recommend Audio 101. But effectively, again, what this is doing is, instead of subtracting the noise, so when you have spectral decay set to 0 and you identify a noise profile, it sees that noise profile, which is here, and it sees your good audio, which is here, and it subtracts this from this. It's a math problem. It's subtraction. It's removing entirely. Spectral decay simply attenuates that noise based on the loudness of so this is the loudness, the program material exceeding that noise floor, okay? So you're just bringing the noise down, and the more decay that you use, effectively what it's doing is it's maintaining that noise in the background. So you no longer perceive it as being there. It's still there, but it's not subtracted, because subtraction is aggressive. So it maintains a bit of that noise in the background, and then when the person stops talking, again, if you've got a super high level of spectral decay, you'll actually see it spectrally trail off from, if the noise is, say, a reddish purple, you'll see it trail off into black. That's effectively what it's doing. So it's attenuation versus subtraction. That's the fundamental difference. Oh, John Highland, you're very kind. Thank you very much. Jazz hands, Craig. Yeah, okay. Yeah, sorry, dude. I was trying to find... we're already over time, but here, let me see, just because you were patient, let me see if I can find... What was that session even called? I don't even remember now. This is how often I use electric guitars. Not so. Hold on. No, I don't think it's going to be in here. T-Bolt. I'm trying to find it for you, John. Bass. I need it in Pirate Teeth, actually. If I ever release the version of Pirate Teeth that has the full band, I've been meaning to upload, overdub guitar on there, and I just haven't gotten around to it. Okay, I'm not finding the session that I want, so it's probably not going to happen right now. The truth is, the same thing applies, but like I said, keep in mind that, and I'm really sorry, I can't find the session I'm looking for. I don't remember what it's called. Just keep in mind that you want to be mindful of the compression ratio, so that you don't completely kill the dynamics of the guitar, right? And again, play around with that attack release. If you're doing leads, you can have. I probably would use a lower ratio, because you want some of those. You want the dynamics to pop through, but you can use more makeup gain to really kind of push it forward, and you probably want the release time to be a little bit longer, because if you're sustaining a lot of notes, as leads often do, you want those to maintain that same louder compressed level. In other words, when it's sustaining, you don't want the compressor to suddenly drop off. That's, again, directly related to your threshold as well. But all of this is explained in that Audio 101. But it's really a matter of just being mindful of the compression ratio. If you've already got super compressed rhythm, don't use a high compression ratio, because then you're just flattening it out to where it's just almost, it just becomes a, just like this monotonous sounding kind of bed. If you're chonking along, you want a faster release, so that you really feel those chung, 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 chung. The attack time as well, you can kind of time that. You have to listen for it. If your attack is too fast and you're cutting off your pick sound, you'll actually hear a little digital click in there. So back off on the attack. It'll let some of that chung, 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 chung through. And, you know, again, you can use the makeup gain to push it a little bit forward. But you got to be careful there too. You don't want to do too much makeup, because then, and again, you have to make sure you're compressing it properly. All of this is explained in that audio 101. Leonardo, yes, you're not getting, it's not freezing anymore. Well, that's good. Yeah, I don't know what was happening. Okay, Apache. Again, so it is supercardioid, and even if you're inside, there's so much background noise. That sounds, so one of two things, my friend. Assuming it's a condenser and it's battery powered, you've either got a dying battery, change the battery. If you're not using battery power and you're using phantom power to power the condenser, there might be something with your voltage of your phantom, or if you're getting really a ton of noise inside, that sounds like a gain staging problem. And I talk about this in that audio 101 about recording your voice. Gain staging is effectively how to set the gain of your input signal so that it's hot enough without clipping, but also not too quiet. You want some latitude, right? In case you have something that gets really super loud. You don't want to clip, but you also don't want to record too low, because then you're not taking advantage of all of that greater bit depth that modern devices offer us with 24-bit and above. So sounds like it could be a gain issue. So I'd say it's either gain related or phantom power related. You should not be getting any noise at all if you're inside. Like there shouldn't be any. So again, I would look at if you're using a battery power, if you're using a phantom power from a preamp or something, and then finally the gain stage. How are you adjusting gain on this shotgun? Because if you're getting a lot of noise, it sounds like the gain's too high, and it's not set properly. All right. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. All right. Isaac X, I love using Audition, but I hope more people ask about Adobe website for instruments. Oh, I know, Isaac. We were talking about that at the beginning. I don't know if you were with us. I know, VSTIs. The more people can demand it, I hope we'll see it. I hope we'll see it come in here, because we need it. We really, really need it. I want it.
Got a story I'm a share. Getting older isn't pretty, and you know life isn't fair. But the images you see of those girls in magazines.
This needs to be re-recorded and remixed. I have a whole new version of this slated for release sometime later this year. Very, very different sound. I'm excited to put it out, but it's going to take a while. Okay, still waiting for hardcore punk Pyro Teeth. Oh yeah, that's right, Craig. So there is a hardcore punk version of Pyro Teeth, also on the cutting room floor. You should do an album where you sing all the instruments. It would be pretty damn awesome. Yeah, maybe. I've seen some videos of people doing that. It's fun. I'm not, I'm much of a beatboxer, so. But of course, being a sound editor for years, I'm all about those backwards versions of those sounds. So yeah, yeah, drums would probably sound very much like this, Right. And that's where good compression comes into play. All right. Yeah, Apache, yes. I mean, that would be the first place I'd start. Because like I said, you shouldn't be getting a lot of noise from a supercardioid shotgun mic inside. That definitely sounds. It sounds like a gain and or battery issue for sure. So, okay. And did I miss anything? Isaac, how do you lower the speed and pitch, or just the speed? Okay, and maybe we'll end with that one since we've gone a little bit over. All right, so you've got a couple of options here. So why don't we take this file, and I'm actually going to make a new multi-track session. We'll just call it test. Put it on the desktop. All right, go back here and let's insert this into the multi-track. All right, So now, of course, you have different ways that you can do this in both multitrack and waveform view. So I don't know, Isaac, which of these you'll be doing this in, but you can do it the same way in both views. Just, well, slightly different method, but the same concept applies. So to adjust speed or pitch in the multitrack, of course, it's all non-destructive. So if you simply want to enable that functionality, right, you have this global clip time stretching button toggle here in the multitrack. So when you click on this and turn it on, I don't know if you can see right here in the upper left and right hand corners of your clips, you're going to get this little white triangle. All right, and that triangle represents the time stretch. So here at its, like, you know, this is a minute and 46 seconds or something. If I simply grab this and stretch it, so basically now making it faster, and you can see I've just done like a 55% stretch. I don't know if you can see that tooltip there, zooming in for you there. All right. Play this back again. So it's twice as fast. Pitch has not been affected. Now, how do we change what it's doing? So this is where you actually need to open up the Properties panel. Okay. So if you open up Properties, and dock it over here, come into the Stretch section of Properties. And under Stretch, you've got a couple of different methods. So the first is, by default, in multitrack, real-time stretch. This is obviously fast, as you just saw. You know, if you're trying to just elongate something to fit a particular duration, it's click and drag and it just works. The audible playback quality, it's, you know, this is sort of pre-rendered, right? So it may not sound exactly as good as it would sound when you actually render and finish the mix down. So if you're looking to hear what it's ultimately going to sound like, you can switch into rendered. And sometimes I'll just do that just to hear what it's going to sound like when it's actually rendered in the final mix, at the cost of it having to, you know, apply the effect and just kind of do a pre-render in the background. This is not unlike if you had our stretch effect applied and you pre-render or freeze the track, same concept. So again, if I play this back now, okay. Now, if you've got your listening ears on, that sounded really good. It sounded fast. I didn't hear any weird warbles. There was some weird warbling when I was in real-time mode, right? So if we go back to real-time, it actually feels like it's doing this. That's just the nature of real time, because it's allowing you to just visually adjust timing. That isn't ultimately what it's going to sound like. So I will often change that to rendered when I'm kind of in the throes of hearing the mix as it should be. Monophonic and polyphonic. So this is, again, directly related to what the signal is. You know, being that this is acoustic guitar, theoretically, I would guess I would choose polyphonic. It's not going to have too much difference on this particular sound because, again, I'm actually just playing sort of like block fifths and some chords, some triads. But the way to think about what this should be set to, and it really should be on polyphonic, is monophonic. What's a monophonic sound? Voice, monophonic, one sound at a time. Yes, you can make two sounds or three with your mouth and your nose, and I can do that too. Monophonic, you know, cello, trumpet, saxophone, wind instruments, monophonic, right? Single sound at one time. Polyphonic, multiple sounds at one time. So, you know, if you're trying to stretch a music bed, you're going to choose polyphonic because there's multiple sounds happening at the same time. And then vary speed is a completely different method. So this basically simulates tape style stretching, meaning that when you speed something up, you're raising the pitch, and when you slow something down, you're dropping the pitch, right? That's what vary speed by definition is. So in the case of something like this, if I were to use vary speed, when I play this back now, even in real time, sonically, actually, it's perfect because it's just varying the speed based on the change in duration. And the opposite of that, so let's say now we go, instead of 55, let's drag this out to, 130. Right? The pitch is lowered, and we've elongated this. So what if you want to do a combination of things where you want to stretch the duration, but in this case, the default is to maintain pitch, but you still have independent control over pitch and time. So here, I've stretched this out. Now it's a lot longer. Back at our original pitch. But you'll see that you have a pitch slider here. So let's say not only do I want to adjust duration, but I want to affect the pitch as well using this polyphonic stretching algorithm. I can do that. So let's say I want to go up 1.8 semitones. Let's undo that. Right. So that's it. So you have independent control. By nature, the pitch does not adjust. It's going to do a straight stretch maintaining pitch. Or that's the other thing too. Here's the, let's go back to 100%. So here's the original tempo. Right? Original tempo. But my singer tells me, and thankfully this was the only track I recorded. I can't, this is in, what is it? This is in F sharp? Oh, I can't do F sharp. Okay, so we're going to drop it, let's say we'll drop it 2 semitones or something. Let's do -2 here. So now, without changing the time, duration is the same, tempo is the same, beat is the same. We've dropped it 2 semitones, pitch-wise. All right? Got it? Sweet. That's cool. All right. Awesome. Well, everyone, thank you so much for joining me on this open session on audio and Premiere and Audition. I hope you liked this. Kind of trying something a little different today on this Friday. Happy to do more of these if you found this useful. Hope I got to everybody's question. If I didn't, I apologize for that. Let me just go back through here. I'm more in video editing, but sound is such a huge projects. It's awesome if I could listen to. Oh, that's very nice, Kale Arts. Thank you. All right. Oh, good. And okay, Isaac, you're doing it in multi. So there you go. So that exact workflow I just showed you, that's exactly what you'd be doing. Okay. All right, Anzi. All right, thank you. So Evil Cerise, A Raccoon, Ant, Gibosh, John Highland, Diego. Anyone else whom I've missed? AS Images may have dropped off already. Thank you so much for joining me today. The replay will, of course, be available here on YouTube, and I'll be back streaming Monday on the Premiere Pro Facebook page on some topic, TBD. Oh, and next week we're also going to revisit. The character animator puppet that I was building. So, if you remember, earlier this week I showcased my Family Guide self in Character Animator, and I started working on that puppet and cutting it up and animating it. So next week we'll do part 2, and I'll show you how to rig up your characters via Character Animator and take it a little bit further. And then probably do a little bit of audio and probably do a little bit more motion graphics next week. So once again, thank you so much for joining me wherever you are in the world. Really appreciate your time today. Have a great rest of your day, night, morning, wherever you are. And we'll see you again next time. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.